Good morning and welcome to another conversation with Mose. And as always, I pray life is treating you well wherever you are in the world and that you're one day closer to your dreams and prayers coming true. And of course, my podcast wouldn't be a podcast without a poem. So today's not going to be any different. And this poem is written by myself and is taken from my book, My Life in the Sunshine, which is available now where books are sold. And this poem is called A Body for the Lonely. He asked me my name. I say that's not important. Let's just handle our business and go back to our lives. Don't pretend you care about me because I don't care about you. And please don't ask me any questions you don't want the answers to. You should be asking me if I'm positive, and I don't mean my attitude. Guess I should ask you that too. But I don't care about that tonight. Do you? Yeah, I hadn't read that poem in quite some time, but I definitely want to talk about that poem and what inspired that poem before I get into the subject matter. I wrote that poem a lifetime ago, and I was probably in my 20s and maybe early 30s. And that's back when when casual sex, when I was living in Atlanta, was just something I kind of turned to. I wasn't as bad as I could have been, but, by the grace of God, but I really just had really jaded views on sex. And especially when I was angry or if I was depressed, casual sex was something I was just kind of fall into. And again, I wrote that poem about really no one in particular. It was just about like the blurs. You don't remember faces or names. And it was just kind of how impersonal sex can be, how impersonal casual sex can be. And which brings me to my subject matter for today. And actually, I was really reluctant, to be honest with you, to be, I didn't know how transparent I really wanted to be with this. But a lot of things have occurred and things that I've seen over the last few years that have really just kind of disturbed my spirit. And so the subject matter for today is sex, temptations, and other demons. And first, let me say, I'm not a preacher. I'm not a minister. I'm not finna throw scripture at you about what I'm getting ready to discuss. It's not that type of situation, but I want to speak to the people that are wanting more for their lives. And first, let me say, I have to be honest. I actually saw a video by an artist who shall remain nameless because I don't want to plug this artist or give power to that, this particular person. I like her, very well respected actress and musician. And I was a little disturbed by her video. And again, if you know who I'm talking about, then by all means, check it out or whatever you choose to do or not. But anyway, I just think sexuality and I think the lines are so blurred now. And when I was younger, we didn't have the internet. You had to meet people the old-fashioned way. You had to meet them in person. And then you had these dating apps that came along. But you still had to meet in person. So it wasn't so much about sexting or, sex wasn't as accessible as it is now. It's so like you can just swipe right and somebody's coming to your house. But I think there is such I don't even know what the word is. It's so scary to me that even a kiss is more like a handshake. It's so impersonal now. And every time I get online, Instagram, Twitter, I just see so much sex, so much sexualized music. People aren't really talking about love. Women are a lot more, I guess, aggressive sexually, which I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, women have always put their sexuality in their music, but it's kind of getting to the point where it's getting a little racy, a little vulgar. And again, I'm not saying that. I just feel like they're recording whole albums like that. And it was a time you had love, you had compassion on records. It seems like now everything is about sex. So no matter where you turn, there's sex and, like I said, other temptations. And I guess my point is, for one, I feel like as a black creative person, it kind of troubles me that it seems like the only thing that we can talk about is sex. And I know the way I grew up with the music that I used to listen to, sex was part of the equation, but it wasn't the equation. So black people went to music to feel better. If you were in a relationship, you wanted to work through it. If you were having financial problems, they wanted to be encouraged. People still need that. So it just troubles me that when I see so much sexuality, because I can admit in my 20s, in my 30s, I was obsessed with porn. I was really really into porn, and I was really just, especially when I was stressed out. It really wasn't anything. I wasn't into strip clubs or anything like that. I just had my obsession with porn and drinking alcohol, liquor in particular. To this day, that's why I don't drink liquor like I used to drink it. It's just, it brings back a lot of bad memories. And again, being insecure like I was back then, not realizing that's what that was. I was feeling a lot of insecurity and feeling like, I wouldn't even say I was horny. I really, probably 90% of the time I wasn't. It was just me trying to fill a void, so to speak. And I see people online and I see my old self in people. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with sex. I think it's a beautiful thing. But I think we've kind of taken the joy out of it. Relationships, I get it. People are sleeping with other people and doing all this stuff. You think all these polyamorous, I don't know if I'm saying that right, relationships. Like, people think monogamy is something that's not realistic. I think it depends on where you are in your life. I think people get in relationships knowing they want to still have sex with other people. That's the problem. I mean, I think if you really want to be in a monogamous relationship, you can. And I'm not judging other people. I just don't think it's fair that the world is just so sexualized. Like, there's so many other conversations that we should be having, and sex isn't the answer. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and I think it still should be sacred among two people. And again, if you want to have casual sex, I mean, I say do you. But I think the lines are just blurred, and it just disturbs me because I don't have children, teenagers, college kids. I don't have any of that. And I think it would be confusing for young people. I mean, I think that's why they're struggling now with so many things, because sex is so discussed so early. But if I was going to talk to my children, if I had them, I would definitely be honest about sex, and with my sons and my daughters, because we really didn't have the temptation so readily available. It just wasn't like we had access to it. And again, I grew up with Prince, and Prince was very he was definitely, for the time, hard. I mean, but he talked about so many other things, but he did talk about sex. And I just feel troubled because it just seems like there's so many other things that young people could be getting fed along with sexuality, like relationships. Because I feel like people are in relationships, what I like to call gum relationships. You're chewing the gum until the sugar's gone. It's not sweet anymore, so you want to get another piece of gum. And that's what I think relationships have become, just pieces of gum. And people are like, oh, it's not as sweet as it used to be, so I'm going to get another piece of gum. And I'm not saying that there aren't temptations, but I know they're going to be younger. There's somebody younger than me, more handsome than me. I don't think I'm the end all be all. And I trust that my partner, that I can't speak for another man in terms of being faithful or, not having any kind of infidelity. But people are human. I get that. But I just don't like the idea that people are using sex as some kind of escape. I think it's becoming minimized and becoming more like it's just not sacred anymore. And it's I believe it should be something beautiful between two people that, and again, I'm not going to go spiritual on you. I'm not going to get into my personal spiritual practices. But what I can say was when I had my cancer back 12 years ago this year, it changed my attitude about my body and how sacred my body has become once I got healed from cancer. So I have a different view in terms of how I feel about sex and how sacred our bodies really are. And I did a podcast on that. But I really just want to talk about the temptations that are out there, and then what are we looking for in terms of, is sex, all these different people, is it really making us happy though? Or is it something that we're not fulfilled? And that's kind of the question that I'm putting out there. Are we really fulfilled? And I choose to be monogamous. I mean, I choose that lifestyle because it's better for me now. And I'm just in a different space. And I think, to be honest, I think people that are getting married or in relationships, you have to be honest with yourself. I mean, are you prepared to be monogamous? And if you're not, then just be honest with yourself and the person that you're with. I mean, I think it's a shame to be cheating or quote unquote being unfaithful in this day and time, because sex is accessible. It's like running water. I mean, it's everywhere. It's easy to get, easy to access, and it's not even personal anymore. It's very impersonal. And again, to each his own. But I think for those people that really want to be in relationships, people that really want to, and then the other thing, you can't hang out with people like that anymore. Meaning, if you're in a relationship and you're choosing to be monogamous, you can't hang out with people. I mean, really hang out with people that are living that life, because again, especially if you're choosing another path for yourself. And again, this is not to single out anybody, but I think we're living in a time where you have to be honest with who you are. And I can be honest, I'm not into the whole multiple partners, whatever they call it when you're in a relationship with more than one person living together, and a triple, I forgot what they call it, a throuple. It's just not for me. Again, to each his own. If you can make it work, I say do you. But, and even the situation with Jada and Will, I have my thoughts about those kind of relationships, because I think that if that works for you, I just don't think everybody needs to know that. I mean, whatever's going on in your house should stay in your house. I don't believe in sharing things with the world. And I think that's what my biggest issue is. I think that people are bringing their real personal and sacred stuff to the internet. And some things should stay between you and the people that you're intimate with. I don't think it needs to be, especially if you care about these people, if you genuinely care. Like, to be honest with you, if I was single, I don't think I would ever be with somebody that we could actually have our phones in the same room. Like, I think our phones should be locked up, if we're going to have any kind of relation. Because I don't trust people like that. People are taping you or videotaping you and you don't know it. Next thing you know, you're on somebody's OnlyFans page and you didn't even realize that you were being recorded. I just think we're living in a time where, and that's the other thing, people are making money. We didn't have that then. I mean, people are making their own personal porn and actually making money from it. And again, to each his own. It just troubles me that it seems like sex is the only thing we seem to be offering each other. And it's a little scary to me. And I don't know what I think about it. I really don't. I just think it's sad that we, especially now being a man of a certain age, I'm not a young man anymore. I don't look the way I looked when I was 25, 35, 45. I can see my age. I can see my virility, my relevance to myself, but to the world, I'm old. So I know women and men get that same thing. You're aging and you don't look the same. Your body isn't as tight as it might have been. And I refuse to give in to that I'm just going to get put to pasture, and I don't have any drive anymore, and I'm not important. Like I said, we all want to feel sexual and sexy. Who doesn't want to feel that? But I just think that we need to get back to some sacredness. I mean, again, I think sexuality is really blurring our young people in terms of, again, it gets back to that piece of gum. I mean, are we really minimizing love to where it's only as good as the sex is? I mean, having prostate cancer changed my life. When you're bleeding from your penis and you don't know if you're going to ever have sex again, if you're never going to be able to have sex, it changes your perspective. The fact that you can still get erect or have an erection is serious. And especially when you get to my age, and then I was going through this in my 40s. So I appreciate sex, the fact that I can still have it. And sex is a blessing. But I think we're minimizing it. We're making this, we're treating it so passé that we can just have it. And then you still have all these diseases out here. HIV is still pretty rampant, and you have a lot of other things, other dangers. And I think, to be honest, the biggest part, I think, when we use our bodies up to where we've abused them, and then you finally meet somebody, and then you can't have the sex that you prayed for. You use your body casually, have all these challenges with your body, and then you finally meet somebody that you fall in love with, and then you can't even have the sex that you really want to have. So again, I think it's more of a concern. I think like I said, I think sex is a beautiful thing. I just think we're in a space where we're abusing it is probably the right word. And I don't think there's anything wrong with sexual aggression or sexual confidence. I think that's a beautiful thing with women and with men. But I just think the lines are very blurred. And it just troubles me that there's so many other issues in the world that we need to be concerned with. And I want people to stay together. I want people to stay married. And I want people to fight for their relationships. And I really hate to, like I said, to make it seem like gum in relationship, because it seems like that's what people are doing. You find a reason to cheat, or you find a reason to be with somebody else, when you have to be honest with yourself. Is this the relationship that you really want? And then some people, for lack of a better word, they full-time hoes. They just like having sex with different people. But I don't think you should bring people into that. If that's what you are into, I think you should be honest about it. And I think that's the issue that I have, is I think I've been hurt before. I've been left behind. I've been brokenhearted. And again, I know how to deal with pain in that regard. But when it comes to my body, I have a totally different perspective. I really wish I had known the things that I know now. And again, it's by the grace of God that I could be in a different space. But I do consider my body sacred. And like I said, I love my partner, but it has nothing to do with him. I met him being this person. When I met him, I was already in this space. It's not because of him. I love being this person. I love being this faithful guy. And I'm good. I'm a good man, and I'm proud of that. But it took me years to get my confidence. And I think that's the other part about relationships, that I think that we punish ourselves for being good to people. That's not a crime. And we make ourselves feel guilty or feel some kind of way because we are faithful, we are good partners or husbands and wives. This never should be a problem. The fact that people may take advantage of it or people may hurt us, that shouldn't stop you from being a good person. I think when it comes to relationships, the lines are blurred. But the other thing is, you got to stop talking to people that have no experience in relationships. Why are you getting advice from people that go to the club every week? People that have never been in a relationship. They've never even tried to fight for a relationship. So why would you take advice of any kind from somebody that's never experienced the kind of problems that you may be having, or whatever the relationship looks like? Everybody's relationship looks different. So you can't compare yourself to another relationship because every relationship is different. But again, I think when people talk about Jay-Z and Beyonce, of course, we know that supposedly he cheated on her. You know, she could have cheated on him. We don't know what makes that relationship work. But I know she's continued to be herself. He continues to be himself. So some relationships are worth fighting for. And why don't we talk about that? Why are we always kind of quick to someone so argued in public, or they must be having problems? I don't understand why we go out of our way to tear people down. You know, I just don't get that. I mean, it's when are we going to start encouraging people to work it out? Why are we glorifying people's breakups or people's problems? And then people kill themselves, or they have these episodes, and all of a sudden we want to feel sorry for them when we pretty much pushed them there. You know, it's like when Whitney was married to Bobby Brown, everybody's like, oh, she shouldn't have did that, or maybe she shouldn't have. But it's like, at least she tried. You know, and again, I think my whole point in this is that I think we don't really we're in a position where I don't think we should be saying certain things. And again, I think the lines with young people is so blurred, and with sexuality and monogamy, and I think they're really not. I think they're confused, because if you don't see it, how can you work toward that? You know, if you're not seeing it. And to me, it just kind of hurts me to see young people thinking that monogamy is not something that's possible, because I think it is. But I think the one thing is, with the two people involved, you have to be honest with yourself, especially if you're not fulfilled, if you're not secure in yourself. There's a lot of factors in that. People, I mean, if you got to have sex with 100 people or 20 times a day with different people, that's a problem. That's not necessarily it's different, I'll say. And if you're trying to live a better life, and you're listening to music, and you're looking on the internet, and it's pushing you back it's like an alcoholic going to the bar every day, and you're hanging out with people that drink all the time. And I think that's what the internet is sometimes. And I think you really have to be honest with yourself about where you are before you get in a relationship, when you're in a relationship, and just be honest with yourself and your partner about where you are. Because again, I won't speak for anybody else. You know, I believe that people are who they choose to be, but it's a choice we have to make. So when I saw that video, again, it just disturbed me. It seems like sexuality it's getting to the point where it's almost vulgar to me. And I grew up with MTV and Video Soul, and again, sexuality's always been there, but it was just tasteful, beautiful. It was something you look forward to, something you embraced. But now it just seems so everybody wants to get off, quote unquote. And that's what's different, you know. And I love music, but I miss the love songs like Whitney and Luther and even Anita, music that talked about love and intimacy and togetherness. That's what's missing for me. And that's what I'm glad I grew up in a time where making love was a thing. You know, people wrote about it and staying together and working it out. And I just want to encourage those people that are going through or in relationships. You might hit a dry spot, or you hit a rough patch. Don't seek comfort outside of your relationship. I mean, again, don't turn your relationship into a piece of gum, because the gum isn't sweet enough anymore, and you're just chewing it because you don't have anything else to do. You know, so you're just going to grab another piece of gum. And if you're not happy, then find out why you're not happy. But bringing somebody else into the equation is just not, I don't believe it's the answer. And again, if you're a sex addict, own it, live it, walk in it. But don't bring nobody else into that. Again, you know, I've never been a sex addict per se, and I don't even think I've ever met any. But I've just heard stories. Because are you a sex addict, or you just need something to do? You know, that's what you have to ask yourself. And again, this is not to point fingers at people. It's just that I think we're living in a world where the lines are really blurred. And I think people are trying to go along to get along. But even with my books and poetry and my store, All Things Moetic. There's I write about sex, I write about different things, but I don't write about just sex. And I am a black gay man, but sex is not something it's part of who I am, but it's not what I write about. It's I could never minimize my work to just writing about sex. But again, I write about life. Like even with this podcast, or my podcast show, I talk about different things. And I'm not afraid to use myself as an example. But I just think that we need to be honest with our partners, with ourselves especially, about who we are and what we want from our relationships. And even about marriage, kids, how you want to raise your kids. And because honestly, if I had kids, I don't even know if I would let my kids watch TV for a while. I think they would be reading books up until they're probably teenagers. Because I wouldn't want to hide them from the world, but I would want to explain to them before they get into the world. And I would want my sons to know and my daughters to know how sacred they are. Not to say they're better than anybody else, but you have to know your body and again, explain sexuality and tell them how beautiful it is. But at the same time, to be choosy about who you who you share your body with. I think the conversation just would be different. Kids are going to be kids, but I think the conversation would just be different. And again, I'm fearful because, again, we're living in a world where sex is so casual and it's becoming the forefront. And again, it's just a little disturbing. And I just, like I said, the video that I watched, and I've seen a lot of videos similar, but this one kind of really just disturbed me a little bit. And I just kind of felt like I wanted to talk about sexuality and where we are with it, and to encourage those relationships to work it out, to really try to fight for your relationship and what it means to you. But I'm not going to do a second poem at the end. I just wanted to share, and I really didn't know I was going to talk about this because I really was kind of reluctant, but it was just something in my spirit that I wanted to share. But also, I want to talk about my store, All Things Moetic. And I just want to say thank you again for stopping by and shopping with my store. And I will be having new product at some point, like I said, different things, but definitely come by and check out my framed poetry and my framed pictures, my photography. But also, if you see any images that you would like, just the print, I can definitely take care of that for you. So just take a look at my store. I'm going to be adding t-shirts, coffee mugs, and baskets really soon. So keep checking back with me. I appreciate you, All Things Moetic. And as always, I pray life is treating you well wherever you are in the world, and that you're one day closer to your dreams and prayers coming true. Thank you for listening.